Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nisha Ramachandran, Interim President and CEO of APEX. Thank you all for joining us for our first Women's Collective Office Hour session of 2025. The APEX Women's Collective aims to educate and provide resources for women to represent our communities in public service. Today's office hours session is all about the unique role of commissioner, and we're thrilled to have an outstanding group of female commissioners from across the United States here with us this evening. In this session, our speakers will speak about their unique backgrounds, respective journeys in public service, and experiences serving their communities in the role of commissioner. I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of our distinguished speakers for joining us in this important conversation. Our moderator, Karen Kwok, who is a DC Commissioner for Asian Pacific Islander Affairs and a nurse practitioner in the DMV area, Khydeeja Alam, Executive Director of the California Commission on Asian Pacific Islander American Affairs, Halaevalu Vakalahi, a DC Commissioner for Asian Pacific Islander Community Development alongside Commissioner Kwok, Yasmin Padamsee Forbes, Commissioner for the Cambridge Human Rights Commission in Massachusetts, and Maricres Castro, Commissioner for the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs in Washington State. We value your leadership and we're looking forward to hearing from each and every one of you. So with that, I will let our moderator, Commissioner Kwok, take it from here. Thank you all again, and please enjoy the rest of the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to moderate this panel. I appreciate the invitation, and I also am grateful to each of the panelists here for accepting the invitation and generously donating their time with us to share their insights and wisdom. The idea for this discussion came about when I had spoken with the predecessor for the Women's Summit on the reimagining for women's leadership in civic engagement. And with that intention, we had hoped to get a wide geographic representation where I reached out to individuals, not just here on the panel, but including Kentucky and Colorado, Alaska, and Florida, and Alabama. And so that intention was also true with my outreach to the entire diaspora, with just the richness of the A and HPI emblematic here. So in the panel that will be speaking today, I had spoken to Khydeeja specifically because of the wisdom that she can bring for a state run versus a city specific commission, as well as the specific structuring of the California Commission, where it is staff led rather than volunteer appointments. For my co-commissioner for DC, Hela, she represents the education sector, specifically in social work, and has both community ties in Hawaii as well as in her native Tonga. With Yasmin, she had helped with efforts with WNAPIA, the National Coalition of AA and HPI commissions, with the federal efforts from the prior administration. And with my colleague Maricres, who also served with me in Peace Corps Zambia, she has interests that will be transitioning from her volunteer appointment to actually running a campaign. And so with all these unique perspectives, I'm hoping that the attendees here will be able to benefit from thinking through how they can be locally active. And without further ado, I wanted to launch the first icebreaker question, where each of the panelists will be weaving in their own individual pathway to civic engagement around this question. They will tell us how they have served out their role in the commission with their respective offices. And so the first person who can speak, how about Yasmin? And then I'll let each of you popcorn style and elicit a discussion amongst yourselves as well. Go ahead, Yasmin. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'd like to firstly thank the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies and the Women's Collective for hosting this really important conversation. And I'm really honored to be here and part of this group with such distinguished speakers. Um, And so my name is Yasmin Padamsee Forbes, and I currently serve as a commissioner in the Cambridge Human Rights Commission, where I help address civil rights complaints and advocate for inclusive city policy. And I've also been fortunate enough to be the executive director for the past 4.5 years with the Massachusetts API Commission, which is a statewide body that advances the equity for Asian American and Pacific Islander communities through legislative advocacy, youth leadership, and mental health initiatives. So both these roles have really deepened my belief that appointed service, like commissions or working at the local level, at the city level, at the school level, they all offer really powerful entry points for all of us who are making to serve a difference. And I encourage everyone who's in the school and beyond to consider stepping up and joining and making a difference in our communities. So thank you. I'll popcorn it over to Khydeeja.
Thank you, Yasmin. And we're going to miss you in your role. She was one of the first ones I reached out to when I first was appointed. Thank you to APAICS and the Women's Collective for having us here today. It's an honor to be amongst such stellar women. My name is Khydeeja Alam. I'm the Executive Director of the California Asian Pacific Islander American Affairs Commission. We are a commission, we're built in statute over 20 years ago. We have 13 commissioners, 5 appointed by the governor, 4 appointed by the Speaker of the Assembly, and 4 appointed by the Senate President Pro Tem and the Rules Committee. And my journey to where I am today is I've been in and around California politics and policy that I felt like was always a passion of mine to work in policy because I truly believe, working in policy, you can change the lives of so many. In a good way or bad way. We're seeing both these days, unfortunately. And it was just something that really called out to me as my passion, my purpose, and I've stuck to it. I've been an advocate on behalf of our vulnerable communities, and I worked in the governor's office, leading, one of the governor's legacy programs on volunteerism. And when the commission asked me to, take this responsibility, I felt like it was just my calling. All this knowledge that I've learned over my career, I wanted to be very purposeful about how I use it from here on. And I took on that responsibility and became the executive director. And it is such a, just public service. At times we only think about the elected bodies, elected offices, but the appointment process and, being appointed to commissions, councils, it is such a good way for you to, yes, get your foot in the door, but also make a change. Our body advises the governor and the legislature on the needs and views of over 7 million Californians, one of the largest growing populations, not in Asian and Pacific Islander community. We're not just the largest growing population in the United States, but also one of the largest in California. And to be able to do justice to our voices and to make sure we are every step of the way, whether decisions are being made in the legislature or they're being made in state departments and agencies. Sometimes that voice, that nuanced voice, is so important, and I feel like we get to do that work. And to get to do that work, not as an elected, but as an appointee. So it's a great honor to be able to do that. And I will hand it over to Hela.
Aloha, everyone. For this convening, my place of privilege is at the intersection of having the honor of being a brand new member of the Washington, D.C. Mayor's Commission on Asian and Pacific Islander Community Development. My 25 years career in academia as an academic and also as a leader and administrator And then my current space as president and CEO of the Council on Social Work Education, which oversees social work accreditation and education nationally, and most importantly, as a member of the AA and HPI community. I think that's the best qualifying factor for me being here. As we all know, no matter where we're located, our community makeup, our career track, or whatever, as both Khydeeja and Yasmin have said, we all have opportunities for civic engagement, for community engagement. It's Kuleana. That's basically what it is. And a part of being in our AA and HPI community. It's not necessarily connected solely to a position or role. It's all of our roles and are done in so many diverse ways, which allows for very little excuses of not doing something like this. So, we've seen civic engagement in our ANHPI community, from voting to knowledge transmission to voice in public forums to reclaiming our community and also to the big screen, right? So those are areas that I believe our AA and HPI have made such a big difference in terms of civic engagement as well as contribution to the community. So I'm truly, truly honored to be a part of this panel today. So I think I popcorn it back to you, Karen. Or who am I missing?
Maricres.
Oh, hi.
Maricres, go ahead.
I think I'll bring up the rear here. Mabuhay. Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in and thank you so much, Apex, for having me. It's such an honor to be here along such a stellar panel of AA and HPI female leaders from across the country. My name's Maricres Castro, and I'm calling now in from Tacoma, Washington, where I serve as an appointed commissioner for the city of Tacoma on immigrant and refugee affairs. Like many of you, I have many hats, but it's just such an honor to be a part of this political process where we are, yes, involved in policymaking, a part of outreach, and a part of being a trusted voice in informing our politicians that appointed us to really know the heartbeat and the pulse of what's going on in our communities. And definitely just resonating with what everyone has just said. We're needed now more than ever to really speak up and be a part of empowering our community with the tools to speak up for themselves too. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you all. I wanted to at first ask about community connectedness, which each of you so well exemplify. But I think maybe what might be helpful to ground us in the commissioner appointment process is to actually go through the nuts and bolts from the commissioner's standpoint. How did you prepare to be that top candidate as the appointed commissioner? And then love for Khydeeja to weigh in later on in speaking to the executive director role in structuring and operationalizing the California Commission around having those processes and procedures in place. Because again, California has a state-run commission and it is staff-run rather than volunteer appointments. But let's speak to first the commissioner preparatory process. And I might bounce it back to Maricres and then feel free to popcorn it as well as bring up discussion amongst yourselves.
All right. So hello again. I so when I was appointed as a commissioner, it was an application process, and so one of my mentors had asked me to apply. Former U.S. Army Brigadier General Oscar Hillman, he was just like, "Oh, you're going to apply for this." I'm like, "Okay, I'll apply." And so preparation for it, I just fell upon myself, like the letter of why I wanted to apply, my resume, everything, and then appearing before the mayor and city council and presenting my case. It was a 2 minute and 30-second speech along with interviews and things like that in order to pass this process. It's been an honor to be a part of it. And so that's what it is, pretty much short and sweet. And I guess I'll popcorn it over back. Maybe we'll work backwards to Hella.
Thank you, Maricres. So I think one of the things that I've always tried to impress on our young AA and HPI women is that no matter what happens and no matter what obstacles we may face, education is still our best bet in any kind of preparation. Education, so we have to get credentialed, and whatever that means, in whatever career track. For myself, academia gave me that platform to be involved. Every single community that I had the blessing of either working and living, I've had the opportunity there to be engaged civically, whether it's a commission on aging or now here in DC, this commission, or just being in community with other organization and trying to make sure that Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander in particular, their agenda moves forward. I think I go back to the preparation of education is still our best bet, especially for women. It's still our best bet. So, but other than that, I think a sense of kuleana, in addition to getting credentials, there has to be an inside sense of kuleana. It is a responsibility that is not only for today, but for the future, the generations that's going to come. For me, that's a great preparation mentally to have as you're engaging in any kind of, whether you're talking about politics or you're talking about education, or any kind of community or civic engagement. Those are things that I think would be important for preparation. So, Yasmin?
Wow, thank you so much. That was very moving to hear, and I fully agree with what you were saying. It's so important to have that strong base and foundation of education. Um, in my journey, and I'm sure like a lot of women on this, who are the panelists here, as well as people who have sort of called in, the reason why you have also joined this call is because you are interested in public service, and I really commend you that you need to all continue that, because we need to have more women at the table and women who can sort of bring in different perspectives. So even if you sort of think that, oh, well, I don't have like the right qualifications, or I don't sort of fit the right profile. It is so important that all profiles are represented, like people who are who represent different areas in one's life. So whether, different religions, different economic backgrounds, different regions, it's just important that we have this diversity. So in my journey, like, I guess I always have felt, especially being a woman and being from India, but also from being from from a minority community in India. My background is, my religion is Muslim, and therefore I've always sort of felt it's important to uh, be at the table to sort of bring a voice from a community that isn't normally heard, or if it is heard, there are misconceptions on uh, what people think that community represents. And therefore, if you are from, if it is important for you to show that you're here, you think a certain way, and that you're here to contribute, one should sort of step forward. And the application process, if it differs in various groups. So in my case, I saw a small advertisement in the Cambridge kind of free newspaper that they circulate for looking for Cambridge Human Rights Commissioners. And, just being on the Cambridge Human Rights Commission, it was something that just drew me in. And it was a simple application, and I was interviewed by the staff members there, and I think one commissioner was also there. And it was, and I got on. And the wonderful thing about the Cambridge Human Rights Commission is like the the I guess the position, it lasts for 3 years at a time, but it's endless, so you can keep extending it forever. And actually there are people there who have stayed there for 10 years or longer, because, and I think it's, of course, like once people leave Cambridge, they have to leave the commission. But it's important to have new voices, but it's also great to have people who have been there for a long time because they bring in the knowledge and understanding on what has been done and can help in pushing the body towards to greater heights. So I encourage everybody on this call and your friends and everyone who you know to jump in. Thank you. So I'll pass it on to Khydeeja.
Yeah, thank you. And Karen, let me know how you want me to respond to this question. I mean, I've been part of a process of being on a council. I was appointed by the speaker. I went through a different appointment process to be where I'm today. I think in general, I think from a perspective of an executive director of an AA and HPI commission, representation is so important. We have in California over more thousands of commissions and commission appointments and council appointments, right? And I think, educating our communities around that these things exist and you should apply is half the battle. And I'll give you an example. Recently, I helped someone get appointed, but just telling them this something, it was not on our commission, but a different state commission. Just letting them know that they would be such a good fit for a different commission, and I encouraged them to apply. They didn't even know about that. They didn't know about the process. They didn't know something like that existed, that they can bring value. And a year later, they went through the interview process, right? So educating our communities around these opportunities, I really feel like is half the battle and is something that I'm really committed to because our communities are so diverse and some are engaged in the policy process, political process, a civic process, but so many in our communities are not. And because of their lived experiences, their unique backgrounds, they bring something so unique that would benefit, our state entities. So that is something that I really encourage people and help support people. Our commission process, I'll give you our commission process is, it is all up to the appointing body, how, who they want to appoint. And they all have their own processes and they all have their own interview processes. They go through the application process. For example, the gubernatorial appointments, you can submit your application online. And if there's a fit, because they're also like, each appointing body is also looking for who's the right fit in their overall picture. How many, have I appointed to a certain commission that, come from the same background? They also want to be very diverse. California, we're very proud to still stay true to stay true to, ensuring that we have diversity of opinion and, what we see, right? So, where our, the state is, our leaders are very committed to that. So I think they all have their own processes and they like to see what, we're missing. How do we fit this person in? And they all go through the interview process. And of course, it helps that, you have someone, who can vouch for you. But again, I think educating people so more people can apply. So more people are out there. We have a bigger pool from people. So these appointing bodies can choose from. One of the things that I wanted to really make sure that we do is, our AA and HPI community is very diverse. We have over 40 different ethnic groups. We would like to see diversity, that's comprehensive. We can't fit all 40 different ethnic groups, on our 13 commissioners, but there is a value add that, we hope that even from a very underrepresented community can one eventually serve on our commission and bring that unique voice and purpose.
Thank you all. And so what I'm hearing is that it's not just about right time and right place. And all of you are here getting that education. So that's the first step. But it's also some of the core ingredients like having a passion, a topic of interest, of priority for the community. And in that connectedness, in that shared responsibility, I had a question for all of our panelists here regarding when it sometimes is a challenge to gather everyone together with that diversity of opinion, representation, diaspora that is rich of the ANHPI emblem, there might be some contentious issues. And so when have we developed that connection around topics that might be challenging? And I might send this to Hala first.
Okay. Um, I think that sometimes we really cannot avoid contention over issues that people might not agree on. At the same time, I think for me, this is just my opinion. Um, we just need to do the best we can for as long as we can with whatever we have. And sometimes those challenges never get resolved, and sometimes those conflicts never get resolved. At the same time, I think um, if we're afraid of jumping in, that's probably worse than jumping in. And sometimes we just have to we navigate those challenges the best way we can. I don't think that um, I don't think that having such diverse intellectual capabilities or credentials is something that we're lacking in our community. I think we have that, and I think that that's how we would approach things that are challenging. For example, as you were asking the question, Karen, I thought about RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and how did she navigate? She wasn't a protesting type. She was a great writer. So she used her talent, to actually deal with some challenges and some issues that many people did not want to talk about, except maybe the women that we wanted to talk about that, having the same rights as everybody else. But I think the for me, just having the courage to jump in and using the best talent and the best gifts you have to at least navigate some of that may be something that I think I have used and I would continue to use. I don't think I've ever met anyone who was and maybe because maybe the people that I'm around are always courageous and are willing to have those difficult conversations. But I've always met people and I've always been positioned well to, no matter what your talent is, no matter what your gifts is, if the issue is conflicting and it's causing friction, that's okay. Jump in and see what happens. And for me, that's what I have been doing to navigate some of the really difficult issues. And hopefully, the outcome was a good outcome. I've seen some good outcomes, but some you wait for years to actually see those outcomes. So, do you want me to
Thank
popcorn it?
Well, thank
Okay.
you, Hala. I might just take a twist on that question regarding the federal initiative with Wanapia and drawing Yasmin in to share how maybe those same challenges around pushing for systemic change draws on some of the individual commission strengths that you might have witnessed or pulled from specific to Cambridge. And so I'm wondering what you can share about that, Yasmin, and before I have Khydeeja speak on another question. But go ahead, Yasmin, first.
Great. Thank you so much. So I think like systemic change, really begins with listening. And in my time at both the Cambridge Human Rights Commission as well as the Asian American Pacific Islander Commission, what we've tried to do is hold listening sessions, and that is to hear from underrepresented groups, that live in Cambridge, which are like the newly arrived migrants, and then with the commission, it's with the Afghan refugees and Burmese refugees that have come, and I've sort of found like through these sessions, like they've help us shape our legislative priorities and really uncover, uh, usually overlooked areas, and which deal with mental health challenges that people are facing and language access. And it's so important to like go into the community and hear, because sometimes, people don't really write in or speak about some of these issues, especially like if you're dealing with mental health challenges. But then when you are there, like for example, with this community in Cambridge, they were talking about how um, uh, this woman, she lost her house, she lost her job, and then lost her house, and then therefore was like out in the street. And this is like a story you hear from across America, and it's important to be there to sort of listen to people, and then look through the community and see like how you can really put together forces to assist them. Like for example, with what we started doing with the refugee support, uh, so it wasn't like we started with lobbying. We first started with the stories, and then we brought the policymakers into the room with them. And it's so important to also like in that way humanize the data, and we help the legislators really connect the dots between the policy gaps and the real lives that people are leading. So I think like change, all change takes time, and when you're introducing ideas and challenges, it's going to take even more time, because all people get very resistant to change. But if you start looking at how do I help in building this up from ground up, with more trust and stories, and then slowly increasing the broad-based support, it becomes harder to ignore, and people have to listen, and that eventually creates systemic change, and that's what I've seen through my work. Thank you.
Speak to the same question. I completely agree with Yasmin. Listening is important. Making sure that you see, just going back to just the community, and our community is so diverse. We know that, and so our opinions and what we want to be able to achieve. So I think showing up for each other is part of the big picture, right? It has to be. We may not agree on every issue as a community, but there are issues certainly that still, because of our humanity or our backgrounds, our lived experience, there's still so many things that we can agree on. So how do we find those opportunities? How do we find those places where we can agree on and move the agenda forward? And I'll give you an example of what the commission, along with the API Legislative Caucus in California, was able to achieve. In California, we did struggle with, okay, what is that one collective agenda, for example, we're going to be able to achieve, in the state budget or legislation. we always think about that. And, during the pandemic, our community dealt with two pandemics, hate, anti-Asian hate, as well as COVID. And then opportunity came along. It was an opportunity for us to really invest in our AA and HPI communities in California. So the whole AA and HPI community, along with our commission, with our API legislative caucus, our, nonprofits across the board, in HPI nonprofits across the board came together to work on API equity budget. And we were able to achieve funding, historic level funding in California to work on Stop the Hate. One of the biggest investments I think in any state has made have been in California. And that was an opportunity for allyship alliances. And we really got to be able to work on that as a community. What are things, yes, we'll have many differences, but what are things that we can, work on together? And there's always that way, and we just have to find that way to be able to do that.
That's awesome. I guess I can also take a crack at the question too while we wait for Karen to jump back on. I really love the phrase that iron sharpens iron. It's okay to have conflict. It's healthy. Like Ms. Hella had discussed with RGB, it's important to dissent and it's important to have these conflicting opinions because there's that saying if everyone in the room is thinking the same, then someone isn't thinking. Um, and it has been in my experience, especially last year, I was appointed also to serve on the charter review committee for the city of Tacoma. There were differing opinions, and whenever there were, that polarization that happens in the room with different political parties, one of the things I'll always do is just kind of call the question like, what are we trying to defend? What are we trying to change? What is at the heart of where you're coming from? And I love how Ms. Hella brought up, a value. In the Philippines, we also have that value. We call it bayanihan, and that spirit of kapwa, that spirit of community. That what we're doing is it causing us to rise as a community, or are people falling through the cracks? And what can we do to make sure we move forward together? So it looks like Gwen, just jumped back on, and I see in the comment that apparently DC is experiencing a storm. So not really quite sure when Karen will jump back on. So the question that Karen wrote in the chat was she was going to ask Khadijah, was going to ask this question. What is an impactful
I
career
see Karen.
decisions when pushed
Yeah,
for
Karen
systemic
is here.
change? Oh, Karen's here. Okay, never mind. Okay. Sorry, when I pull up the box. Hello. Okay.
Thank you for doing that, Maricres. And my apologies, everyone. There are major thunderstorms here, so I got knocked out. So I apologize. I couldn't listen in on what the last comments were, but as
No worries.
Maricres was sharing, I was just going to pass it on to Khydeeja to hear what were some of the lessons learned with making your career decisions when there has been challenges that you've encountered in policy making.
Um, uh, uh, Career decisions. Oh my God. I think the biggest one was, in my current role, I had like sort of an epiphany when I was taking care of three kids during the pandemic on my own, how I want to spend my career the next, and I was an advocate. I was doing, I was very passionate about it. And going back to I think what I referenced before, why I took on this position was like I think I learned so much, and how am I going to make a systematic change for my own community, the Asian and HPI community? How do I make sure there's more representation of South Asian women, Asian women? I'm also Muslim American. How do we show up? For our younger versions to make sure that they're involved in the political process and everything, so all of those things came to my mind when I felt like this response, I wanted to take on this responsibility to run, our commission. And when I took on this responsibility, Kieran, this is something that you said. Our commission has existed for 20 years, and for majority for about 18 years of those 20 years, the commission was run by our volunteer commissions. We did not have staff. I'm the second executive director, and we had a great executive director prior to me joining. I felt like in order for us to achieve anything, you have to have purpose. You have to give that, agency or whomever resources to be able to really do the work of our community. And when I took on this position, it was, I was one person. Now we have over 8 staff. We're the largest, NHPI commission now in the state. That means we have a huge responsibility to be able to communicate with every group that identifies as ANHPI as well, right? But that started with us building the infrastructure for our commission, making sure that we are, as someone was mentioned, that we have seat at the table to be able to share our experiences and what we need. And I think our state has done a really good job of listening and being able to respond to what was needed to really build our commission. And we want to do so much. But I think going back to your point, in order to make systematic changes, you have to listen and you have to ask. I think sometimes, as we as women, as especially as AA and NHPI women, we are afraid to ask. I still am at certain times, right? But I wish we had the confidence of men. But it is really important for us to be able to have seat at the table, but also be willingness to ask for what we feel like is needed to really truly represent our community.
Thank you, Khydeeja. And in this last question that actually came from the audience beforehand, it was regarding what challenge inspires us. And I wanted to give Maricres a chance to share what was that inflection point that inspired her to throw her hat in the ring in transitioning from a volunteer appointee now to running a campaign.
Hi, thank you for that. It's definitely uh, been, I think one of the biggest turning points is just like Hella and everyone has been talking about. It's when we're feeling what's going on in our communities and we want to do something. And I felt that I'd served on the charter review last year for the city of Tacoma, where I was appointed, went through that whole process of listening and doing outreach with community. And actually, I helped lead the translation of our charter, our foundational governing document for how we do government in the city of Tacoma into Spanish, Viet, Khmer, and Tagalog for the first time. And that, one of the 6 people in our community don't speak a language other than English at home in the city of Tacoma. And for, just having that mind to think about these barriers in access to participating in democracy and how if the people sitting at the table of decision making don't have our communities in mind and the type of barriers that they face to participating, but still being a part of community, wanting their representation at the seat of decision table making is one of the reasons why I threw my hat in the ring, just to make sure, not only just to hope, but to make sure it does happen. And so that's why I felt that push. I felt some the push from my fellow candidates. So I think um, I was a bit shy. I was like, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know if I should run, but just from fellow women, fellow leaders in the community, kind of pushing me to run and asking why it took me so long to try because in a way we're already doing the work and we're already doing the work. So that's what kind of helped me talk myself into it in a way because it's actually nothing new. We're already doing it together, so why not run? And on average, I think it's not just for office, but even for applying for jobs. Women tend to count themselves out. We tend to say, "Oh, we're not qualified." There's that negative self-talk that's always saying we're not enough. And I'm here to say you are. You're more than enough. And because of you, even yesterday, I was at a rally celebrating the release of three detainees, Filipino detainees from the Northwest ICE Processing Center. And I was just there in community, and someone asked me, "Why didn't you bring your sign for your campaign?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's about the community. I don't want to." Like, no, we want our youth to see Filipinos running for office. We want our youth to see our community, like especially women stepping up and like, okay, and um, I don't want to cry, but like one of the daughters of the detainees made some special earrings and gave me ones that are in the color of my campaign colors. And so it just like those special moments of, this is what we're fighting for. Um, People are counting out parts of our community, and we want to make sure they're counted in. So that's why I decided to run. And I hope you all do too. So looking at y'all over here.
2025, 26, everyone. And while everyone in the audience is coming up with questions, our APAICS staff persons here is going to queue up any questions that come up. But I wanted to share first how inspiring each of the panelists have been here, how each of them have shown how they have empowered and inspired women in their own small circles. And while they are preparing their last remarks, which is what might have been opportunities that might not have been considered on the traditional pathway to civic engagement, each of the panelists are thinking of those last tips to share with audience members. I want to give some space to the audience to have their questions answered. I'm going to take a quick look, and pardon me, got kicked off my laptop, so I'm on the phone looking at the questions, and it looks like what has been the opportunity that best propelled forward the ANHPI voice and presence while honoring, recognizing, and making visible smaller subgroups that are often unseen, unheard, and ignored. And so I think anyone in the panel might be able to give a quick minute or so response to that audience question.
I I think I wrote a couple of sentences in terms of that, Karen, and just I think the gist of what I wrote is leveraging every opportunity that comes our way, small or big. We're not waiting for some big, magnificent opportunity to come. I think all of us could attest to the fact that those little opportunities that come our way prepares us for whatever the future holds. So I think that was what I had responded with in terms of the question.
Great, and I might quickly interject as well, where in creating this panel, I had specifically outreached to the ANHPI communities in southeastern US because that experience could be so different. The priorities based on what's the budget, what's the environment landscape like is so different. And drawing in Yasmin on the federal initiatives as well around making sure voices are heard. That's also something that maybe you can speak to while there's a follow-up question for Holly that I have in the chat box.
No, thank you for that. It's a really important question. And, I'd sort of a little bit touched on earlier that it's so important um, to have these listing sessions, and we've sort of done that at all levels, at the city level, at state level, and the federal level. And Lenape has been like amazing as well as doing that, where they have worked across the country and held these special listening sessions with smaller communities everywhere. And because through that you can ensure that all voices are heard and can be elevated and are given a seat and a voice at the table. And even if that individual voice is not at the table, there are people who can be taking the concerns uh, to elevating it at the federal level and making sure that those that people the AAA and HBI community is heard loud and strong, because if you don't speak up, and a lot of the panelists have brought up this issue before, that if you don't speak up, you can't expect someone to understand where you're coming from. You have to speak up and say your needs and talk about your issues and concerns, and people are there who are going to be taking it up and following up with it. But if you don't say anything, then nothing will happen. And I know that within our community, especially with women, people are always you go in certain events and you find uh, people who are, probably if English is not their first language, or like the older community, they're very nervous to speak about their needs, but you're here, your needs are really valuable, and no one should be ashamed about talking for it, because people who are in commissions or who you have voted in are there to provide service to the community, and you have to speak out. Do not be shy. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly interject. I know we're running close to time and wanted to make sure to address that last follow-up question to Hala, and that Khydeeja and Maricres have last word. Could we run over a little bit by 5 minutes if everyone in the audience and the APAICS team are okay with that? We do actually have a virtual happy hour as well. So I hope that that's okay. And thank you all again for your time and your interest. And Hala, go ahead. You can answer that follow-up question. It was regarding what was the challenge in being representative of one of a few, and how did you navigate that space?
Yeah, so to the Tongan woman, the fellow Tongan woman here, be a good ancestor. That's all I can say. Be a good ancestor, meaning you can't be the first and the last. You're going to have to be the first and make sure that you're not the last. Um, I know I'm so familiar with that question because I have navigated so many spaces in academia that I felt alone. The blessing of academia, though, is that there's so many other people who are willing to be allies and who are willing to lock arms with me in moving forward in making sure that I wasn't the first or the last. So, as Tongan women, just my last comment on that, as Tongan women, as you know, indigenous Tongan women are fahu in their own rights, which comes with a lot of confidence, which comes with no fear. Tongan women are fierce. So, sister, you're gonna have to dig deep inside in that fierce Tongan womanness of yours and make sure that you're the first, but not the last. So that's all I have to say about that question. I have so much to say about it, but for the sake of time. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I completely agree. If you're the first, please don't be the last. I think where I am in my life is, for me, my purpose is all about giving, and sharing my knowledge, with people and women and anyone who wants to listen and wants to know, is just sharing my knowledge and expertise and experiences with them. I myself, I'm an immigrant. I moved here when I was 13 years old. I didn't know anything about the education process. My parents were working two jobs each. I navigated that through by asking, and and be in this position. It's a privilege, and for me right now is, how can I share, just sometimes, like, for the longest time I didn't talk about my experiences, or where I came from, and or how I got where I got to. It was because I thought it was, I was, talking myself up, but that's not the case. If you share your experiences, and now I feel comfortable doing that, is because I want to share my experiences, because you never know how it resonates with someone else who may be going through the same experience themselves. So I share about my experience freely to have whoever wants to know. So they learn from it, they build upon it. There are not many of us, even in California, within the state administration. We probably have, probably five or six highest ranking AA and HPI women. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm one of the very few Muslim Americans, South Asian Americans, in California, and we just have a lot of work to do. And so for the younger generation and people who come after us, we want to be able to, I want to be able to share my knowledge and the know-how, the process. That is so important. And just sharing is just something that's important.
Maricres, I wanted to give you a chance to have the last word, but wanted to say it as well in terms of that leveraging of each other and propping all the communities up. I also have reached out to the Central Asia population. So those that are at the table, we need to be the ancestors, to be those shoulders for which other communities can stand on, so that all the individual communities in the diaspora are represented. And Maricres, go ahead.
I'm just absolutely loving just the opportunity to be on this panel. Thank you so much, Apex, and just to all of the fellow commissioners here from across the country. It's so awesome to meet you all. I think I just want to resonate that you are enough. Your stories, the way that you've grown up, your culture, your experiences, your heartache. There's a saying that people won't won't really care about what you know until they know how much you care. And what we as women, and loving our communities and loving our families and loving our, an equitable future for us all. I think we tend to count ourselves out. So don't count yourself out. We all have our different journeys, and even if yours might not be the most traditional journey, please know that it's never too late to jump in the ring and to fight. And we need all of us on board, and all of us being active in what's going on in our country and in the world. And you, by just being that beacon of hope, we're going to create like that ripple of change for each of our communities. So thank you for the opportunity to weigh in.
And I know Apex, the team here, probably has some words to say, but just a quick answer to one of the audience questions around high school engagement. I believe Apex actually has a program specifically for younger generation commitment and engagement. So stay tuned. And the time is now, like our panelists had said, you are enough. Your passion is the main core ingredient. How do we prop each other up? And I'll pass the floor back to the Apex team, but there still is opportunity for you to ask each of the panelists here individual questions in the happy hour that we have after. Go ahead, Apex team. And thank you again for having me as moderator and each of the panelists here for the insight, wisdom, heart in all the work that you do every day. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your note, Karen, moderating this panel. I want to echo my thanks on behalf of APAICS for all of our panelists here and for all your insight into your careers and advice you have for other women interested in pursuing a career in public service. The only note that I'd like to share to our attendees who are still here is that for our last Women's Collective office hours for 2025, we will actually have an in-person event here in DC, which is really exciting. We will be sending out some save the date graphics shortly in the coming weeks, but it will be October 8th. From 5:30 p.m. Here in downtown DC. It'll be a sip and shop event at MM LaFleur, and it'll just be a nice event to network with other women in the area and have some light bites and do some shopping. We hope that for those who are in the DMV area that you'll be able to join us in October. That will be our, again, last office hour event for the year. But we are very excited to continue the work through this Women's Collective initiative at APAICS moving on in 2026. But thank you again for everyone who attended today. I hope this was a fruitful conversation and discussion for all of you, and that you're able to leave feeling inspired and empowered to also put your hat or name in the ring. Sorry, is that the correct phrase? But thank you again. Happy to stay on a little bit longer and for anyone who has some uh, lingering questions that they'd like to ask the panelists. But again, thank you again to the panelists. Feel free to hop off. We want to respect your time as well. So
Thank you,
thank you all.
everybody.